Sally's Speed Shop with Jacob Davis, fabricator and former Hot Rod Magazine writer and photographer. He's appeared on Roadkill and Finnegan's Garage. Also featuring producer of Bad Ideas, Tim Davis. He's an electronics tech, mechanic, RN, and former aircraft builder. Follow along as we have some fun and get things done.
Well, it's another day here at the shop. My dad is over and he brought wheels and tires for the Volkswagen. So he got these pretty killer like vintage Firestones that I believe are made by Coker.
And they're really fuzzy.
Yeah, they got a lot of little nubbies on them.
I guess that's what they did back then.
I don't know.
Either for outgassing or whatever, but yeah, they need to shave.
Yeah, but these are way better than the old tires from back in the 90s or something. They were pretty old. I think one of the tires I saw had a date code of 2002.
Yeah, the tag on this is 2005, the last time it was tagged, so those tires were probably close to 20 years old, maybe.
Yeah, at least. But now we'll be able to get this thing back on its wheels so it's not on jack stands anymore.
Take it out of hover mode.
Yeah, that way we'll be able to move it around, then finish tuning up the engine and getting this thing running and get it back to its owner so he can enjoy it with his family. What do you think of a Volkswagen?
The design of the Volkswagen was amazing. The fact that it's air-cooled and just the simplicity of it. The 15-inch tires I like because, you know, back in the day, they weren't running 15s on something like this. A car this small, they would be like 13s, but they make it ride smoother.
I'm kind of excited to get it running. I've never actually worked on one myself. It's kind of been a learning experience. Gas tank in the front, battery behind the seat, engine in the back. It's definitely a different recipe than what we're used to with our American cars.
That's right. Party in the front, business in the back. They got these lug bolts instead of lug nuts, which I don't really know why they do that, but they're really a hassle to get the wheel on there and get it lined up where you can normally put it on the studs. Here you have to get it lined up and put these in order to put a wheel on, but it is what it is.
German engineering, right?
Yeah, it's the Germans.
Das Auto.
Volkswagen, das Auto.
We're gonna get the wheels and tires put on this thing one step closer to getting it on the road.
That's right.
What you think, Mobes?
Yeah, you just want to go for car rides, don't you?
Boop. It's January in Georgia, and I'm wearing flip-flops because it's like 65 degrees out today. It has been cold, but it's back to kind of warm days for January. Oh, wait, don't look at that gnarly toenail.
Safety first.
I had that toenail ripped off when I was like 13 years old. My brother and I were on a bike together. We were double pedaling. My feet were on the bottom and we went over a curb and my toe got hooked between the pedal and the curb and all the weight of the two of us ripped it right off. So it's pretty gnarly looking.
Ugh, that truly sounds awful. No, thank you. That just hurts to think about. Yeah. So we're gonna put you guys on a little time lapse and get the wheels and tires put back on this thing. Here we go. Yeah, it's amazing what new shoes does for a car.
Black, yeah, those new kicks. Nice new black tires, and we got rims and dog dish caps to put on it. These things are...
Yeah, once those are cleaned up and you put the hubcaps back on after cleaning the black part of the wheel, it's gonna look spiffy.
We got 3 of them and the dog dish, so at least the driver's side will look good.
We'll just have to go find another one. I'm sure there's plenty of these out there. How many of these cars do they make?
How many of these are on the side of the road right now? We just need to find one.
Yeah.
Hey, I found a lot of stuff on the side of the road. Look at what my latest score is. So far we found an engine, we found that breaker bar, and then today I found this beauty. It's by,
Somebody was overcompensating.
by Up Power or U Power, and
Thing is
yeah,
gigantic.
somebody needed a bigger pipe, I guess. But anyway, it was just on the side of the road, and Whitney suggested that we turn it into a pendant lamp.
Almost dropped it.
A pendant lamp, which is kind of a cool idea.
It's
but-
funny, a woman's perspective of car parts versus us. We're like, what vehicle can we put it on? They're like, oh, that would make a nice lampshade.
Yeah, I think we should put it on the clean Hornet.
Just have that hanging out from underneath.
Yeah, maybe not.
Oh, goodness. But yeah, this looks so much better. So we'll drag this thing out in the next few days and start working on tuning up the engine and getting it running. And then diagnosing whatever else comes along, because I'm sure it's going to need some other stuff. It's going to look a ton better with the trim rings and the hubcaps.
Yeah, well.
We need to clean the wheels first. Don't get carried away.
Oh. Yeah, I guess so.
We'll get that payoff at the end. So that's kind of it for today on this car. So my dad couldn't help himself. He had to go ahead and add the trim rings and the dog dish center caps and clean them up a little bit. And I gotta say, it's amazing the difference new tires makes on a car. That's the biggest thing you could do if you own a car, especially a car that doesn't have nice paint, is clean the windows and clean the wheels and tires, and it looks like you have a brand new car. I don't know why that is, just kind of how it works.
I mean, just washing one. I mean, the C30 is proof of that. It looked horrible, and after it was cleaned up, even though it's still rough, it looks so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need to pound out this dent. That would help a lot too. Got punched in the face at some point.
Yeah.
We also only have 3 trim rings, so this one's missing one, but it kind of looks better that way. It looks more like a hot rod.
Yeah, old school.
Yeah. I like that better for sure.
I do, yeah.
So might have to get rid of all the trim rings.
They'll fly off eventually.
You're not wrong.
There's just not much to them to keep them on there.
Yeah. So until another day, this thing's gonna sit here and we'll come back and get it fired up, fix the brakes, and take it for a spin. All right, so it's been entirely too long since we've worked on the Volkswagen again, but we're here in the shop messing with it.
Doing a little diagnosing. We ended up replacing a couple things in here. We replaced the condenser, which is on the back side of the distributor, and we put a new coil on it. I'm not sure what was the actual problem. I believe it was actually the coil, and the condenser wasn't necessary, but it's got both of those new. I got a little bottle of gasoline. We're gonna send 12 volts to the coil, and I'll show you that it's sparking, and then we're actually gonna try to run this thing.
You know, some people say to put some 2-stroke oil in this. It gives you a little cylinder.
Top in lubrication. Yeah. But let me set up my little spark plug tester, and I'm gonna show you how you test for spark on one of these old engines the easy way without electrocuting yourself. Then we'll try to see if it'll run. And if you wanna see some really bad things, you can look in the front of this car, and it's just all white wiring. So there is no power to the coil currently, so we're just gonna send power to it with my little power probe and see if it'll fire.
That power probe is cool. I saw Matt Henry had one of those, and for you who don't know who Matt Henry is, Imperial Beach Dad. Anyway, I figured out the brand, and I ended up ordering one, and it's a great tool to
the
have.
Amazon special power probe, not the one that costs like 300 bucks. It's this little teal one right here. I don't know the brand, how to pronounce that. Age Sun or something. I don't even know, but it works really good.
Yeah,
and it passed quality control. So yeah, right. You can send power. See, I got a red light, or you can send ground. I got a green light. Let me show you how we test for spark around here without electrocuting ourselves.
We want you to actually electrocute yourself.
No, thank you.
I'll video it. When I was a kid, my dad was working on one of our lawnmowers. He pulled the spark plug wire off, and he said, "Tim, hold this wire." And then he pulled the cord, and I'm like, deet, 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 deet. Like, yeah, it's working, Dad. I don't think he meant for me to get electrocuted, and I don't know if I was too close to the metal on the wire, but yeah, he lit me up.
Sure, he was pretty entertained.
I'd like to do that to my son tonight, you know. Yeah. Hand down the tradition.
All right, so he's gonna go hit the key. I'm gonna send power to the coil. So there's a ballast resistor on this. I'm actually bypassing the ballast resistor, which drops your 12 volt down to like 9. So we're gonna give the coil a full 12 volts. Sometimes if you run them at 12 volts all the time, you'll burn them up. So that's where a ballast resistor comes in. But I'm gonna send power there, and then my dad is gonna turn the key, and you're gonna watch spark right here. Go ahead.
Here we go, power to the coil.
So here you go. You see this little spark plug tester? It's got its own little ground for a clamp, and then it sparks down inside of that metal cylinder, so you can see a really nice spark without having to hold a screwdriver on anything. So buy yourself one of these little spark checkers. It'll save you some electrocution in the future.
Yes, and they're just convenient too, to be able to clip it on and not have to hold something while you're turning it.
It makes life way easier.
Great.
So we've got spark. So now we're gonna hook the coil wire back to the coil, and now put a little gas down the carburetor and everywhere else apparently. Then I have to come here with this, send power to the coil. We're gonna see if we get any life out of this thing. Fired right up. It's got life. It just spat a bunch of crap all over me out of the exhaust, which is literally right in front of my leg. So I'm covered in like black stuff, but it runs.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It didn't make any weird, crazy sounds. And that's the first time it's run since 2005.
Somewhere around 2005.
So now all we got to do is basically give it gas to the carburetor, because we disconnected the fuel line coming from the tank, because I'm sure that is really gross up there.
Yeah, we're gonna need to blow that
And I'm gonna feed it some gas and try to keep it running real quick, just to see if we can get it to run a little longer.
And I guess you can fill the bowl on this one through that little tube.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to. It's not gonna be easy, because this thing doesn't come out quite like it should. I need one of those little like acetone bottles that they use in chemistry labs.
Yeah.
Those are the real trick. This is the rednecks version of that. But yeah, it runs. So let's see if it'll run a little longer and make sure it sounds healthy and all that stuff. Here we go.
Very cool.
So let's see if we can keep this thing running. I'm gonna work with literally electricity and gasoline side by side, because that's always a great idea. All right, go ahead.
Awesome.
Sweet. And that's running it through a power probe. So get yourself a power probe. They're awesome. There you go. She runs pretty good, actually. I was just feeding it with the bottle. It ran off its own carburetor there for like 10 seconds. And then I had to feed it some gasoline. But it's been sitting in the shop for entirely too long, and now it runs. Now we just have to fix all of that. I mean, my goodness. But all it really needs is power to the coil, and it'll fire up, because we're turning it with the key, and that's running it. So the starter works and everything, we just don't have power to the coil.
And really, for a car to run, if you don't use headlights and radios and all that stuff, all you need is a starter and one wire going to your coil, and you can run a car.
Yeah, that's why old cars are so easy to steal. You need one wire to make it work. One wire and a screwdriver, and you can steal an old car.
We're probably not supposed to tell them that.
Yeah, that's why you see people hotwire cars in old movies, and it takes them 5 seconds, because that's actually how long it takes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. She's a runner for the first time in 20 years. And it ran good. Didn't make any weird noises. It didn't blow a ton of crap out of the exhaust, just a little bit.
It didn't give us too much trouble. Like, it kind of fired right off.
Yeah, once we actually had spark, it fired up immediately.
Once the coil was changed.
Yeah, so it's all about knowing the right part to change so that you can actually make your car run. There you go. What do you think?
I'm happy it's running. We're going to get a little more real estate in the shop when we get this thing gone.
Yeah, we'll just fix a little bit of the wiring. Obviously get his headlights and turn signals and all that working. Maybe have to repair the brakes, because they're very stuck right now.
Yeah.
But as a whole, it's a lot closer to being on the road than it was 5 minutes ago.
I might actually rewire it, but we needed to get it running first.
Yeah, I think we'll buy an actual wiring harness for it rather than making our own, because these cars are so simple and the parts are so cheap for them, you might as well just buy it and replace it.
The cool thing is, this is behind the dash. So you don't have to get up under a dash, laying on the floor of the car. This is it.
Yeah, those Germans are actually kind of smart in some ways, really not smart in other ways.
Jawohl. Fahrvergnugen.
Fahrvergnugen. It's what makes a car a Volkswagen.
It's a great design on this.
Yeah.
Terrible other philosophies that we don't agree with. But
Yeah.
as a whole, they designed the car of the people to be easily worked on by the people. We're gonna get canceled. But yeah, she runs. For what this car is, super simple, really great design they did back then.
Yeah.
They made it about as simple as they possibly could.
Flat floor pan.
And
so
the floor
there's
pan
no
is the
turbulence.
chassis.
Yeah, it is the chassis.
Don't the windshield wipers work? Oh, look at that. Working windshield wipers, that's better than a lot of people's cars. So, got that. We don't have headlights or anything that I know of. The fuse panel's actually loose in the dash, you can actually move the whole fuse panel if you grab onto the back of it, and that's not good. So we need to fix that. Probably by replacing it with something a little more modern without the old ceramic fuses, because this has those little ceramic fuses.
I don't really feel good sending it back to the customer. My friend, my former coworker, that's whose car it is, with the wiring like that. We probably just need to change it. And it's very accessible, so it really shouldn't be that hard of a job, and it would actually make life a lot easier for anybody going forward.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably pull the fuel tank out, inspect it, and clean it, because it's all so easy to get to, because it's here in the front of the car. Because there's literally 4 bolts holding the fuel tank in. Probably need to replace those rubber hoses over there anyway, so yeah. We'll go through the front of the car and make it good. The engine bay needs cleaned up a little, and then we'll have to test the brakes, the clutch, and all that stuff.
Yeah, but now we can just run 1 wire to the coil, and we can take this thing out and drive it now.
Yeah, and it's a manual, so you can stop it even without brakes.
There you go.
It's so light, you could probably stop it anyway, jump out and just Flintstone it. So, but yeah, it's a runner. So it's another night here in the shop. My dad decided to stop by and mess with the bug a little bit more. And my brother's in town all the way from China, which is crazy.
All the way from China.
Jared lives in China and designs high-rise buildings. He's an architect.
Yes, I do. Very tall.
Definitely doesn't know anything about cars, like, at all. But he's here anyway for moral support.
Yeah.
And for Mike's Hard Sponsored.
So I've done a couple things already. One thing I did was I ran a wire from the battery using a fuse, and it runs back to the coil because we couldn't get any power back here.
So we ran a jumper wire to the coil
temporarily.
And now my dad wants to try to purge the fuel tank. So this is a fuel line that runs off of the fuel tank in the car. And he's gonna pressurize the fuel tank with our air system here in the shop. So he's got a compressor hooked up to an old leaf spring bushing.
Yeah, this.
And he's gonna use that to pressurize
to get a
the filler neck and hopefully push all the old gas out. So go ahead and hit it and we'll see what happens. You got air coming out, but no liquid. The tank is dry. What we can do is pull the cinder out and look inside the tank to see what it looks like. And that's gonna be an easy thing to pull out without taking the whole tank out of the car.
It may have been that there was only like a gallon in there. It evaporated out and there's not a lot of residue. It's pretty clean.
Sometimes when you have very little gas in the tank and it evaporates, it turns to like gelish goop. Sometimes having gas in the tank left over is a good thing. Having no gas sometimes is a bad thing.
So you're saying sometimes having gas is good?
Yes.
I think I've got gas. Hey, so
this is what I deal with all the time, Jared. The worst dad jokes on earth.
Hey, down here. So we have actually this flex tube here, so it should be pretty easy to pull this tank out and look into it rather than having a long filler neck like some do, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
You talk to them. He's talking to me all the time. He needs to talk to you guys.
You guys. Use guys.
Can I use you guys' phone? My lips hurt real bad. Come on. You know the reference?
We know Napoleon Dynamite.
Napoleon Dynamite. Yeah. Gosh, you freaking idiot. Let's dump some gas in the carb and hit the key again and see if it runs off of your coil wire.
Okay.
So we can do that. I have a nice new little gas jug just for that. So Jonathan from Macy's Garage hooked me up with this little deal, and it's like the best thing ever. I've been using a water bottle forever because I'm redneck, but this is a little more scientific.
Yeah, that's what we're going from and to. There's a little hole drilled in the top of it.
It's basically the same concept, just this is more like what you'd find in a laboratory.
A little safer.
Yeah, it's way better. Anyway, here we go. So here's our little 1.6 liter. I'm gonna fill up the carb through the vent tube right here. We'll see if it'll actually idle off of its own carb this time, instead of me having to feed it gas the entire time. I have no way of knowing when this is full. I guess when it starts dumping gas out in random spots, I'll know. We'll say that's enough for now, and we'll just spray some fuel in there. All right, go for it. You got it in neutral?
Yep.
All right, hang on. Go again. Well, it runs with his jumper wire. It didn't run off of the carburetor bowls like I hoped it would, but it at least runs. That's it for tonight, so we'll be back on the bug another day.
We're getting there.
little bit at a time.
Well, all right, it's another day here in the shop, and I am working on the Volkswagen once again. I have the fuel tank out here. It was leaking up front. This is where the fuel tank sits. You don't have to lay on your back under a car to get it out, and very convenient. There's the filler tube, just 4 bolts that hold down with these half-round washers. I'm gonna get that put back in there. There's where the line goes to the back of the car. That's right, there's no engine up here. When the tank is out, you really have access to a lot of stuff. Master cylinder, that's where the reservoir is for it. Tie rod ends, a steering damper. Pretty smart design. I'm gonna get that gas tank thrown in there, get the line on there, and I bought some clamps so that I can clamp it, because when we had it in there last time, it was leaking just due to the gravity feed from the tank. We'll get that on there with clamps, and so we'll have gas coming to the back of the car, and hopefully we can actually make some fuel pressure and get it up to that carburetor and make this thing run on its own instead of pouring gas into the carburetor. We have a fuel leak. I don't know if there's a leak in the bottom of the tank, or I didn't tighten the hoses tight enough up front, but I put clamps on it and new hose, so I'm gonna pull the tank back out, which is pretty easy. I didn't bolt it in, I did just connect the hoses so I could fill it with gas. I got those loosened up already, so I'll pull that out and have a look at what's going on under this tank. So we got one of two things going on with this tank. Either it's leaking around this fitting, which this appears to be dry, or it's leaking here. There's a crack in the tank. Maybe we could pressurize it or pour a little gas in it while we have it out of the car, cap this, run the line up, and then actually identify where the leak is. Might need a new tank, or we might be able to seal this one up. I think there is some JB Weld for gasoline. That sounds legit. All right, it's another night in the shop, and I am working on the Bug tonight. Put a new fuel tank in it, got the hoses connected, got the sending unit connected to the white wire.
You know,
yeah,
because that's not confusing at all.
Yeah, got it connected to the white wire and took some pressurized air and ran it in here. Made sure we were getting gas all the way out the back. There's a line that runs down the center of the car through the hump. There's no drive shaft, but there's still a hump. Well, all right, I'm back at this never-ending project. Repacking the wheel bearings on the front brakes because they actually look pretty good. We needed to pull the wheels off to have a look to make sure we're good. Got the passenger side back on. And now to the driver's side. One thing they did back in the day for the speedometer was they ran a cable through the spindle. The grease cap actually has a square pattern on it. So it spins this cable while you're going down the road, and that's how you get your speed on your speedometer. Another thing that Volkswagen did, rather than having a cotter pin, they put an Allen screw in the nut. So once you get it where you want it, just tighten down that Allen screw and hopefully it doesn't spin off of there. I kind of like a cotter pin better, but once it's locked down, it's probably not moving. Apparently these brakes are adjusted out a little bit or have just gotten a little sticky over time. So I got the axle nut off, but this thing is just like barely moving. Yeah, you can tell I'm working at it, making old man sounds. But anyway, hopefully I can get it off. I guess we need to cut to the time lapse. After wrestling with that wheel for far too long, I've decided to give up on it and come over to the driver's side, and hopefully this one will come off a whole lot easier. We're about to find out. Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to work. Wow, that was a wrestling match over on the other side. It's moved off some, but I wore a blister into my hand trying to get it off. I decided to heal first before I get it off the rest of the way. So here's what we got here. We have the wheel cylinder. So brake fluid comes in, pushes these two little pistons out, and that's how you get your stoppage. These pads go up against the inside of the drum and create friction and slow you down. So I've got a new wheel cylinder, got a hardware kit, got new brake shoes, got a new brake drum. I got the wheel cylinder loose. It takes a 13mm wrench to bolt the wheel cylinder in, and it's an 11mm for the brake line. There's the old, there's the new goodness. Gonna get that changed out, and you can see these shoes are just like, the material's just falling off. It's gone over here. We'll get all that cleaned up and have it looking like a new one in a couple of weeks. All right, so I got that spring off at the bottom, and I just removed the one here at the top, and that holds the shoes together. Now to get the other one off, it's got this thing related to the e-brake that I need to deal with. It actually goes pretty quick. So there's where your brake line comes into the wheel cylinder, and you have your bleeder screw there and the screw at the bottom that holds it secure. So here's our new drum. That thing is very pretty. Yeah. I think the brake shoes might need to be retracted a little bit. So I have a puller that hits on the edges of the drum and the claws won't reach around. I realized that I could maybe hook on the wheel. I think if I use this puller and spin the wheel, I'm gonna get it off of here. Well, all right, I finally got that thing off of there. That Fahrvergnugen was far from moving. I probably spent an hour spinning it thinking it was just about to break loose, on the verge, but it didn't. So those brakes look glorious, don't they? Anyway, we'll get them changed out, fixed up, looking like new. Well, I will say that side went a whole lot faster. Second side usually does. So now we just need to bleed the brakes, and this thing should be a runner. Needs all new wiring, but it'll drive, at least in the daylight. Well, we didn't video everything on the car. There were a lot of new parts we put on it. We put in, obviously, a new gas tank, points, condenser, plugs, wires, cap, rotor,
Pretty much everything in the ignition system.
new battery, master cylinder, rear brakes, new carburetor.
So now in theory, it's ready to fire up for the first time in quite a few years. Generally, if you change your fuel system and ignition system parts out, a car wants to run.
Yep. The motors are generally okay.
Yep. If it'll fire up.
If they were okay when it was parked. It's been far too long that this car has been in the shop. We've reached a milestone today. Hopefully it's gonna drive. I gotta put the key in it. For the power to the engine, all I've got currently is just a fuse that I'll put back here in the fuse holder connected to the battery. All right, got that popped in there. Here we go. It's been a little while since it's been running.
Yeah, if you flood it.
Turn the key off, so the steering's locked. So the key doesn't actually give power to the engine, but It will still lock the steering wheel, and it does operate the starter. Oh, I forgot to top off the radiator, so that might be an issue. Ooh, second gear. Oh yeah. Well, we may have had a little bit of a problem here on this first run. I had to call Jacob to bring me some gas, and the shifter seems to be hanging up a little bit. Hopefully, when the motor's running, I'll be able to shift it right and at least get it back home.
Yeah, you're only a mile away, so I think you'll be all right. It does look cute though, I will say that much. It's a very cute car rolling down the road.
Yeah, it is. All right, let's try that. Nonsense.
Did you not put all of it in there?
No, it should be enough, right?
This is why he runs out of gas, because he puts like a gallon in at a time, even when the car's already out of gas.
Oh, I might need to put the fuse in.
That probably helped.
Yeah. I'll spray a little in the carburetor.
Try to start it.
I'll make it a little
Try to
higher.
start it, it's got gas. Hang on. What's the verdict?
That's okay.
He ran out of gas.
I did, yes. It happens. Well, there we go. We got it back in the shop, and I think this is where we're going to make a break. We'll make one episode of getting the car running, and then we're going to work on that wiring, and maybe we'll make that another episode, or who knows what we'll do with it. Thank y'all for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and comment, and we'll see y'all on the next one.
Unfortunately, this past year we lost a dear member of the Sally Speed Shop team, and that is Moby, our shop supervisor. You guys have loved seeing him in all the videos along for the adventure, but we had him for 14 years. He was already full grown when I found him. He lived a very long life and a happy life, and so I just want to thank each and every one of you guys for loving Moby as much as I did along the way. So this one's for Moby.